happy days. Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? Beautiful day, beautiful day.
Well, why shouldn't he? He's taking the same courses again. Right, Chuck?
See, I can joke too.
Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock. 50 million Americans settling into their living rooms to watch a family in Milwaukee sort out the 1950s in 30 minutes or less. Happy Days. 11 seasons, 255 episodes. A show built entirely on the promise that innocence was real and friendship could hold people together through anything. But what happened when the cameras stopped? One of them was secretly reading every script, one agonizing word at a time, hiding a learning disability that had defined his entire childhood. And not a single person on that set knew. One of them walked off the most popular show on American television and became one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. One of them was 13 years old the day she became America's little sister, and 56 years old the day she died in a trailer park in Indiana, broke, forgotten, and fighting a cancer she had kept secret from almost everyone. One of them won a Tony Award on Broadway before anyone outside New York had ever heard his name, and nearly turned down the role that made him a household face. And one of them gave American culture an expression taught in universities, entirely by accident, because his father would not stop nagging him about a hobby. 52 years. Let's see what really happened. Henry Winkler as Arthur Fonzie Fonzarelli. Henry Franklin Winkler was born on October 30th, 1945 in Manhattan, New York, to Harry and Ilse Winkler, German Jewish immigrants who had fled Berlin in 1939 with their family jewels hidden inside a box of chocolates, 6 weeks ahead of the Holocaust. He was 28 years old when he became the Fonz.
Yeah, blue. See, very peaceful. Very peaceful.
Fonzie was the boy nobody believed in, abandoned at 4 years old, raised by his grandmother, living above the Cunningham's garage, who turned out to be the most loyal, most decent person on the block. Every underdog who ever had to act cool to survive recognized himself in that character. Winkler had been hired as a supporting player, billed in the end credits, a character expected to disappear after 5 or 6 episodes. But here is what most people don't know. The boy playing the most effortlessly cool character in television history could barely read. Winkler had dyslexia, severe, undiagnosed, completely hidden. His parents had called him dummer Hund, the German for stupid dog. His teachers had called him lazy. He graduated high school only after summer school, got into Yale Drama School by improvising a Shakespeare monologue he had forgotten, and survived every table read of Happy Days by arriving early, memorizing what he could, and covering the rest with humor so the cast would laugh before they noticed he had stumbled. He did not find out he had dyslexia until he was 31 years old, at the absolute peak of his fame, when his stepson Jed was diagnosed. I went, "Oh my goodness, I have something with a name," Winkler later said. His first emotion was not relief, it was rage. All that humiliation, all that punishment, for what? For nothing. By season 3, Fonzie had eclipsed Richie Cunningham as the center of the show. The network pushed Gary Marshall to rename it Fonzie's Happy Days. Ron Howard threatened to leave if they did. They compromised. The show kept its name, Winkler got top billing. By the show's peak, he was earning an estimated $50,000 per episode, more than $12 million before syndication. In 1980, Fonzie's leather jacket entered the Smithsonian, and in 1977, a storyline where Fonzie water-skied over a live shark, prompted by Winkler's father nagging his son for years to mention his water-skiing skills, gave American culture the phrase, jumping the shark. Winkler's father created a piece of the language. Neither of them knew it. When the show ended in 1984, nearly a decade of near invisibility followed. He had made the Fonz so completely that Hollywood could only see one thing when it looked at him. Then Adam Sandler cast him in The Waterboy in 1998, then Arrested Development in 2003. Then, 27 years after Happy Days ended, came Barry on HBO, and the character of Gene Cousineau, a broken acting coach whose secret life is darker than anything he teaches. Winkler was 72 years old. I was 27 when I did the Fonz. Now I'm 72. I just flipped the numbers. In 2018, Henry Winkler won his first Emmy Award. Standing at that podium, after being passed over for more than 4 decades, his tush, he said, literally left the chair. He has been married to Stacy Weitzman since May 5, 1978. He has written 29 children's books about a dyslexic boy named Hank Zipser, and been appointed an honorary officer of the Order of the British Empire for his advocacy work. Today, in 2026, Henry Winkler is 80 years old, with an estimated net worth of $40 million. The boy no one believed in played the character everyone believed in, and when that character was gone, he spent 30 years fighting his way back to the room, arriving, in the end, at the same destination, the most loved man in any building he walks into. The Fonz was fiction. The journey was completely real. Fonzie had every reason to carry bitterness. He found a way out. The next person on this show never got the chance.
Hey, where's the kid going? She forgets something? She gotta look it up in a magic book?
Erin Moran as Joanie Cunningham. Erin Moran was born on October 18, 1960, in Burbank, California. She was 13 years old when she became Joanie Cunningham.
So that's what he's got.
Joanie was not just the little sister. She was the moral center of the younger generation, the girl who watched the adults around her trying to figure out who they were supposed to be and decided to figure it out for herself. Precociousness with a conscience. America's little sister who was clearly going to grow up smarter than everyone in the room. Erin had been performing since she was 5 years old. She was a working child actress when Happy Days called, one who understood exactly how temporary everything was. But here's where things get devastating. The producers who built Joanie Cunningham as a precocious, funny, self-possessed little girl also decided, when Erin hit her mid-teens, that she needed to become something different. Suddenly they wanted me to lose weight and become this sexy thing, she said in a 1983 interview. She was 15. The show had positioned her as America's kid sister and then quietly told her that was not enough anymore. In 1982, she was moved into a spin-off, Joanie Loves Chachi. She said she would rather have stayed. The spin-off lasted 17 episodes. When it was canceled, she came back for the final season. And then the show was gone, and it took almost everything with it. By 1988, Moran told interviewers she was suffering from depression and could not find acting work. By 2010, her Palmdale, California home had been foreclosed and sold at auction for $291,000. She and her husband, Stephen Fleischman, whom she married in 1993 after a first marriage ended in divorce, moved into Stephen's mother's trailer home in Indiana. Her last credited acting role was in 2012. She was found unresponsive in Corydon, Indiana on April 22, 2017, and pronounced dead at 56. The Harrison County coroner confirmed stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma of the throat. No illegal substances found. Her husband confirmed she had noticed symptoms around Thanksgiving 2016, that the cancer spread with terrifying speed, and that she died peacefully holding his hand. She had kept her illness private from almost everyone. Her estimated net worth at the time of her death? $50,000. In 2011, she and 4 castmates sued CBS for $10 million in unpaid merchandising royalties. They settled. Erin Moran's cut from the show that had made her famous? $65,000. She came into the world as America's little sister. She left it, quietly, from a disease none of her fans knew she had. Joanie Cunningham grew up on every television in America. Erin Moran deserved the same. If Erin's story moved you, hit the like button right now. Help this reach every fan who grew up watching her. Now, the one who saw the exit sign while everyone else was still watching the screen.
Wait a minute. I'm not wearing my brother's hand-me-downs.
Ron Howard as Richie Cunningham. Ronald William Howard was born on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma. He was 19 years old when he became Richie Cunningham.
I'm too dressed up to fool around. I got my good clothes on.
Richie was not the coolest one. He was something rarer. The boy who thought about things, second-guessed himself, and wanted to do the right thing without always knowing what that was. An everyman hero, and the country recognized itself in him completely. Ron Howard had been working since childhood, first as Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show from 1960 through 1968, then in American Graffiti for George Lucas in 1973. It was that film's blockbuster success that convinced ABC to greenlight Happy Days the following year. But here is the detail that changes everything you think you know about his Happy Days story. Ron Howard walked off the most popular show in America at the peak of its ratings, not because he was fired, not because of any falling out, but because he had already been quietly building another career while everyone was watching Fonzie. He had already made his directorial debut, Grand Theft Auto, released in 1977, while still playing Joanie Cunningham, the result of a deal cut with Hollywood years earlier. A calculated trade, a long game strategy. He left Happy Days in 1980 and never looked back. Night Shift in 1982, Apollo 13 in 1995, A Beautiful Mind in 2001, which won him the Academy Award for Best Director and the Oscar for Best Picture. He co-founded Imagine Entertainment with Brian Grazer in 1986, one of Hollywood's most powerful production companies. Howard married Cheryl Alley on June 7, 1975, still married in 2026, one of Hollywood's longest partnerships. Today in 2026, Ron Howard is 71 years old with an estimated net worth of $200 million. Joanie Cunningham was the good, earnest boy who wanted the world to make sense. Ron Howard is the man who quietly, methodically built a second world, one in which he got to decide what everything meant. The boy who played the everyman became the one man behind some of the biggest stories ever told. One man walked off the show with a blueprint. The next almost never showed up at all.
Hair oil.
Tom Bosley as Howard Cunningham. Thomas Edward Bosley was born on October 1, 1927 in Chicago, Illinois. He was 46 years old when he became Howard Cunningham, Mr. C, the most patient father in American television. Howard Cunningham represented something the 1950s desperately wanted to believe, that a decent man could hold a family together simply by showing up, staying calm, and meaning what he said. Competent without being brilliant, kind without being sentimental. Before Happy Days, Bosley had been a genuine theatrical star, studying under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio, supporting himself as a doorman at Tavern on the Green between auditions, and winning the 1960 Tony Award for Best Featured Actor for his Broadway role as New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia. But here's where things get interesting. When the Happy Days pilot was first sent to Tom Bosley, he turned it down. He read the script, said no, and moved on. It was only after he was convinced to reread a single scene, a quiet moment between a father and his teenage son, that he changed his mind. The father-son situation was written so movingly, he told the Associated Press in 1986, "I fell in love with the project. The role he almost rejected became the role that defined him for the rest of his life." After Happy Days, he found a second career as Sheriff Amos Tupper on Murder, She Wrote, and the title character in Father Dowling Mysteries, working steadily into his 80s. Tom Bosley died on October 19, 2010, in Rancho Mirage, California, 18 days after his 83rd birthday, of heart failure following complications from lung cancer. He turned it down, changed his mind, and spent 10 years saying exactly the right thing to a country that did not know it was desperate to hear a father speak that way. Mr. C showed up every week because he reread one scene and changed his mind. Mrs. C had been waiting 25 years for anyone to ask.
Richard, leadership is one of the most important qualities in life for your whole future.
Marian Ross as Marian Cunningham. Marian Ross was born Marian Ellen Ross on October 25, 1928, in Watertown, Minnesota. She was 45 years old when she became Marian Cunningham. And in becoming Marian Cunningham, she became the most recognizable television mother of her generation. Marian Cunningham was the warmth the show needed, the fixed point in a series about change and growing up. Patient in a way that suggested patience was a daily choice, not a natural state. Funny without realizing it. The most resilient person in every room she entered. Marian Ross had spent 20 years trying to get here, appearing alongside Audrey Hepburn in Sabrina and in The Glenn Miller Story, collecting guest spots across decades of television, married in 1951 and divorced in 1969. She was raising 2 children alone when Happy Days arrived. But here is what most people have forgotten. Paramount gave her a studio contract in the early 1950s. She was named Most Outstanding Actress at San Diego State. She had a legitimate early foothold in Hollywood, and none of it was enough. An era that was very specific about the kinds of women it wanted at its center kept her on the margins for 2 decades.
She was 45 and still waiting for her moment when Happy Days arrived. After Happy Days, that moment kept going. 5 Primetime Emmy nominations across her career, a Golden Globe nomination in 1996, recurring roles on Gilmore Girls, the voice of Grandma SquarePants on SpongeBob SquarePants. She retired in 2021. Today, in 2026, Marian Ross is 97 years old with an estimated net worth of $10 million. Marian Cunningham got to leave work at 5 o'clock. Marian Ross never really stopped. Marian Cunningham never stopped. The person who came next spent decades figuring out what working was even for.
Howard, we've been married 21 years. You can stop apologizing.
Scott Baio as Charles Chachi Arcola. Scott Vincent Baio was born on September 22, 1960, in the Bay Ridge neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York, the son of Italian immigrants from Sicily. He was 16 years old when he joined Happy Days as Fonzie's tough-talking little cousin. Chachi Arcola was the next generation's Fonzie, slightly less cool, slightly more vulnerable, completely in love with Joanie Cunningham. By 21, Baio was one of the most recognizable faces in the country. But here is the part of his story that never made the tabloid covers. In 2007, Baio's daughter Bailey was born 5 weeks premature and tested positive for a rare metabolic disorder. He was 46 years old, holding an infant in a neonatal unit. The teenager on every lunchbox in America, the furthest thing from the man standing in that hospital. Baio and his wife Renee founded the Bailey Baio Angel Foundation to support other families dealing with similar diagnoses. Then, in 2015, Renee was diagnosed with a meningioma brain tumor, a second tumor discovered shortly after, followed by a diagnosis of cerebral microvascular disease. The boy who played Chachi with a smile spent years standing in hospital corridors learning that everyone he loved was sick. Charles in Charge ran from 1984 to 1990. By the 2000s, major roles had dried up.
Baio became increasingly visible as a conservative political voice, speaking at the 2016 Republican National Convention. The political alignment cost him relationships in Hollywood and earned him an entirely different audience. In 2018, multiple former co-stars raised allegations of misconduct. Baio denied the allegations. Today, in 2026, Scott Baio is 65 years old with an estimated net worth of $4 million. Chachi Arcola was the next generation's version of cool, younger, softer, more vulnerable beneath the swagger. Scott Baio spent the next 40 years discovering exactly how vulnerable. Sometimes the most complicated story belongs to the one you least expect. And sometimes the simplest truth belongs to the one who almost was not there at all.
Looking good, feeling fine, knowing every day that the world...
Don Most as Ralph Mouth. Don Most was born on December 17, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. He was 20 years old when he first appeared as Ralph Mouth, the one in the group always funnier in his own mind than in reality, and somehow still the most beloved. Ralph Mouth was the court jester of the Cunningham circle, full of wisecracks and terrible timing, the boy who needed to be in the room even when the room was not sure it needed him. Most played him with a sweetness that stopped Ralph from becoming annoying. You always felt like Ralph knew, somewhere under the punchlines, that he was not quite as funny as he thought. But here's the fact that changes everything about Ralph Malph's existence. Don Most almost never took the job. Most auditioned for Potsy and did so well the producers created an entirely new character, Ralph, for him. Then a film opportunity came up at the same time and he turned Happy Days down. It was his agent, who played basketball every Saturday at Gary Marshall's house, who brokered a renegotiation that brought Most back. Ralph Malph exists because of a Saturday morning basketball game. Most left the show alongside Ron Howard in 1980, returned for the final season, and has worked steadily since, acting, directing, and building a second career as a jazz singer performing standards in New York and Los Angeles. Today in 2026, Don Most is 72 years old and remains active. Ralph Malph always played for the laugh. Don Most grew up and found the music instead. The court jester stopped performing for approval and started performing because he loved it. Ralph Malph almost did not make it to the screen. Potsy Weber, it turns out, was connected to something that has saved hundreds of thousands of lives.
What's new? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Nothing's new. Don't panic, I believe you.
Anson Williams as Warren Potsy Weber. Anson William Heimlich was born on September 25, 1949, in Los Angeles, California. He performed under the name Anson Williams. He was 24 years old when he became Potsy Weber. Potsy was the good-hearted one who could not quite keep up. Loyal, earnest, perpetually 2 steps behind. He sang, he stumbled, and he stayed. Through all 11 seasons, when other cast members left and returned and left again, Potsy remained. Williams showed up late to the original 1972 audition after his car broke down in the rain, and was somehow hired anyway, after Gary Marshall spent most of the session asking him about baseball. But here's where things get genuinely surprising. Potsy Weber's real-life counterpart is a close relative of one of the most important physicians in American history. Anson Williams' great-uncle was Dr. Henry Heimlich of the Heimlich Maneuver. Williams and Dr. Heimlich later collaborated on Alert Drops, an anti-drowsiness spray for drivers. While the rest of the cast built Hollywood careers, Potsy Weber was quietly saving lives. After Happy Days, Williams became a prominent TV director. Beverly Hills 90210, Star Trek Voyager, Charmed, and wrote a memoir. In 2025, he was recovering from hernia surgery, still on a group text with Winkler, Most, and Howard. Today in 2026, Anson Williams is 76 years old. He played the boy who could not keep up and spent 40 years proving he was ahead of everyone.
Oh, what a fake out. You're a free man now, Rich.
Yeah.
Arnold's Drive-In was full of faces that felt as real as the main cast. Here's what happened to the people behind them. Pat Morita, Arnold Takahashi. Morita played the owner of Arnold's Drive-In across 3 stretches of the show's run, first appearing at 42 years old, already a stand-up comedian with years of nightclub experience. Happy Days gave him a platform, but it was the role he played a decade later that became his legacy. In 1984, Morita was cast as Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. The man everyone knew as Arnold became one of the most beloved mentors in cinematic history. Pat Morita died on November 24, 2005, in Las Vegas, Nevada, at 73, from kidney failure.
You just say goodbye in another language.
Oh, sure. Adios, amigos.
Al Molinaro, Al Del Vecchio. Molinaro was 53 years old when he first played Al Del Vecchio in 1975, and had only become an actor as a second career after years in real estate. He appeared in more than 146 episodes. After Happy Days, he and Anson Williams briefly co-owned a chain of Wisconsin-style diners called Big Al's. Al Molinaro died on September 25, 2015, in Burbank, California, at 96, from complications of an infected gallbladder. the longest-lived cast member in the show's history.
Double date with Clarence. Yeah, it's gonna be a big night.
4 of the principal cast are gone. Tom Bosley died on October 19, 2010, at 83 of heart failure. Erin Moran died on April 22, 2017, at 56 of stage 4 throat cancer kept secret until there was almost nothing left. Pat Morita died on November 24, 2005, at 73 of kidney failure. Al Molinaro died on September 25, 2015, in Burbank at 96. Happy Days sold 50 million viewers a week. The idea that America in the 1950s was a place where decency won and family held together, and the toughest kid on the block had a soft center and a good heart. Then the show paid the woman who played the daughter $65,000 for her entire legacy, watched her die at 56 with a net worth of $50,000, and left the world with a phrase for creative failure that will outlast every episode it aired. The gap between the world it promised and the world its people actually inhabited is not a footnote, it is the whole story. Drop a comment. Which story hit you hardest? And here is the real question to leave you with. Did you know that the man who played the coolest character in television history could not actually read his own scripts? That Henry Winkler improvised his way through every table read of Happy Days for 10 years, hiding a dyslexia diagnosis he would not receive until he was 31 years old at the absolute height of his fame? Because once you know that, every single Fonzie scene plays differently. The coolness was real, but so was the fight to stay in the room. If this took you back to Arnold's drive-in, to that kitchen, to that jukebox, you know what to do.